Everybody, looks like, Rusin, your timing was perfect. Just as we were about to kick on, welcome to Red Pill Nation number 459. The two people that are with me tonight weren't able to join this afternoon for various reasons. Both Roger Hansen and Rierson are here. I'm going to allow them to have their say around Charlie Kirk, as long as it doesn't take too long, and then we'll get into the topics proper. I am your host, Roki5. Don't really have time to be joking around tonight because the Charlie Kirk episode took 3.5 hours. Okay, that's how long it was. So that was a bit of a long one, and not in a sexual manner at all. But anyway,
I thought you said no joking around. Just saying, you know what I mean? Like,
all right, okay.
What do you think, Steve? Think that was a little bit of joking around when he said no sexual, not in a sexual way. I don't think he's there. Version ran off.
He's not. He's never all there. Just like me. So, oh wait, there he is.
There he is.
No comment. That's all I thought.
All right. So with this tonight, Roger, introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Roger.
Oh, that was quick. Rierson, introduce yourself.
Rierson. Okay, I'll go ahead and continue. I'm Roger Hansen. You can find me on Teams at Live with Roger Hansen and at Discord, at the Wonderful World of Weirdness, as well as Gaming with Infamous. Besides that, you can find me on minds.com as Roger_Hansen, and I stream on Rumble, Twitch, Kick, DLive, and I believe that's it. I'm not quite sure. I've been cutting off on some of the other ones, but you can find me at Rumble as Live with Roger Hansen, as well as on Twitch at Infamous 1969, and on Kick and DLive you can find me at Roger_Hansen if you want to check out my shows.
Okay, thank you. Now it's Rierson's turn.
Rierson.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I'm just getting used to the controls again for muting myself without doing anything. Anyway, Rierson, I've known Rook, for over half my life, and I'm back in the area where we first met. So that's about all I'm going to say for now. I might be moving somewhere east of this place, but I'll find out in a couple of days or within a few days, and we'll see how it all goes down. If it does, I don't think I'll be doing very much for podcasting, period.
Yeah, I'm getting used to doing these shows on my own anyway. It's more fun when I'm doing them with other people, but I'm used to doing them on my own.
Yeah.
All right. For those of you who don't know, site news. My Subscribe Star. I restarted my Subscribe Star. It's not authorized. It's not validated yet. But I have started up. I've also put links for Kick, Twitch, and my Discord are now in the low bar as well. That is pretty much it. Also, my schedule has kind of stabilized a little bit. So I will be able to kind of keep a regular, well, not necessarily a set day of the week, but things will be a lot more stable from this point moving forward. So, yeah. That's the good news. All right. So, without any further ado, for those of you who don't know, I am I'm also at Kick and Twitch now, obviously. In order of number of subs, Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, MGTOW TV, Brighteon, YouTube, and of course, and YouTube. I am also at Minds, Gab, MeWe, Facebook, Getter, and there's a few other ones but I can't specifically remember right now. This is not the time. This is not the time for Orange Man Bad Hand Bombs, Rurson.
Just as well, I'm a little bit out of it right now, so yeah, I'm good.
I think we all been wiped off today.
There.
It's just
Yep. Yeah, it was a busy goddamn day for me. Okay, so the topics tonight, but we're gonna give both Roger and Rierson a chance to comment on Charlie Kirk as long as it doesn't take too long.
It's gonna take
but
a
after
long
that
time, dude.
And of course the other topics are one, and I had to make this number one because it is intimately tied with Charlie Kirk. Ukrainian refugee Iryna Zarutska murdered on transit chains in race-based killing. And there's also 1350, which will be explained. Topic number 2, 3 different governments, Japan, Nepal, and France, all collapsed within 72 hours. Topic number 3, massive immigration process in London causes the establishment there to panic. Yeah, no kidding. Topic number 4, British citizen Graham Linahan applies for refugee status to the U.S. as a free speech refugee. Might be seeing people from Canada start doing that too, because one of the topics potentially next week is Carney is reintroducing Trudeau's censorship bill. It's watered down, but it's there. Which brings me to topic number 5. Juno News Keean Bexte, now subject to criminal investigation for coverage during previous election. And topic number 6, and this is the absolute most earth-shattering topic of them all, and I know we're all shocked at this one. Media suddenly discovers that rating site Rotten Tomatoes is rigged. Yep, never mind Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
Never mind Charlie Kirk. Never mind Iryna Zarutska. Never mind the immigration protests. Yep, that's the big story right there.
No.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Okay. That one has to be tied in with Disney finally realizes they need the male audience again.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, so that's that is it. But before we get started, Cornus might be joining us. He has church in the morning, so yeah. Unfortunately, V can't.
That kind of surprised me when you said that. He's got church in the morning, dude. Seriously?
Yeah, I have church in the morning.
No, B has church in the morning.
In the morning has church in the morning.
I'm okay with that. That kind of threw me off. I was like, whoa, dude. B goes to church?
Yeah, I know. I was apparently so. Yeah, he might be joining us, but he might not. But if he does, he does. He doesn't, he doesn't. Okay, so the first thing before we get into all of the goodies and so forth today is somebody is still moving their microphone around. I see.
That would be Steve. I'm yawning. I'm drinking my coffee so that I could keep my energy going. And
yeah, I'm
what the hell are you doing, Steve? He's got a freaking drill and shit.
I thought I turned that damn thing off. I guess I got the wrong mic on. Okay.
That's crazy.
Okay, all right. It looks like V might be ready to jump.
It was the
Okay, V,
church
jump.
thing.
All right, so V, feel free to jump in. We're on. Okay, so before we actually get into the topics proper tonight, Roger and Rearson were not here for the for the for the Charlie Kirk show. So I'm going to give both of these guys a chance to comment on Charlie Kirk before we actually get into the topics tonight. So, Roger, you're up. John, feel free to jump in.
Well, I mean, first of all, there's a whole bunch of shit going on with Charlie Kirk. When I first talked about him on your show, I didn't freaking really. Well, I even said it. I didn't really do much when it came to Charlie Kirk before he got shot. You know what I mean? So I didn't really know much about him. But then I started doing some research on it, and then my sister came over like 3 days after the shooting and told me about my nephew Cody, who he's in college now, and he came home and told her about it, and he was all devastated about it. And apparently he was really into this guy, so it kind of made me a little bit more interested in it. And plus, it's like the way she acted. My sister is not really too political about stuff, you know what I mean? But like when she started talking about him, she was getting ready. She did bust up in tears because of the way her son reacted to the shooting. So I started checking into it, and first of all, I mean, I get what you were saying to me whenever we were talking before about like a whole bunch of crap's been just pushed back and forth on this stuff. But the weirdest part about this whole thing with Charlie Kirk isn't necessarily Charlie Kirk, because he was always controversial. The weirdest part is the shooter. The stuff that I found out about him was really, really strange. There were accusations made, and I found out they weren't true. Like he wasn't a part of the white nationalist group that everybody accused him of being a part of. Another thing that I found out too, and me and a friend of mine, Tanhai Tran on Element, were talking about this, and it was the kid's freaking background. Now, when he was in school, him and his entire family were like 100% Trump supporters. Okay, and at some point, well, first of all, he was actually a very educated kid. He ended up graduating high school and getting a scholarship. He only was in college for about 6 months, and he dropped out. And from the time he dropped out until now, they really don't have any background of what happened to him. But in that whole process, he ended up going from being a 100% gung-ho Trump supporter to getting into a transgender relationship, and this coming from a conservative family. Now, the weird part about that was Tan Hai Tran said that his take on it was that he was rebelling against his dad, who was conservative. And I was like, well, no, from what I found out, and then this is what I found out, was that doesn't make sense, because if he was rebelling from his dad, why was it that his dad seen photos putting up on the media that looked like his son, and he confronted his son and he admitted to it, and then his dad was able to talk him not only into turning himself in, but this is the weird part, this is a guy who just committed murder. Okay, he was able to talk him into going to a youth pastor and talk to a youth pastor before turning himself in. Now that, because of the situation, is weird all by itself, you know what I mean? So I found out there's a whole bunch of weird stuff, and it's so confusing about how this whole thing went down that even like I got curious and decided to check these fact checkers out too, and the fact checkers can't even get the story straight. It's that crazy. So that's my take on it, and that's about all I gotta say.
Okay, Rusin. Stop playing with your tool and get on here.
He's got that drill going.
No, drill is not going anywhere.
What the hell was that all about anyhow, dude? You like had it.
We're gonna keep jokes to a minimum, right? Right. Charlie Kirk. Honestly, one shock came in because I was reading about it on. What the hell was it again? It was on Discord, the Beyond Mystic channel. And then I looked it up and went, oh. Honestly, the biggest thought that ran through my mind with the whole thing is that, well, this has to be what's called a soul contract. So something that was already predetermined or was the possibility of being predetermined. If he's going to pass away, he could pass away in this manner, and this is how it's going to go down, which is what happened in this case. What's fascinating is the ripple effect, and I haven't gone into this in a long time, but to me, what happened with Charlie is the shot that's heard around the world, and it's personal now. I mean, you just killed off someone who was very close to Trump, and apparently he and J.D. Vance became very good friends. You've just done the last thing you were supposed to do. But, well, we'll see. I mean, if I was in Trump's position, the first thing I would be doing is cutting off funding to post-secondary institutions. And it'll come down to then I'm sure that there'd be a lot of challenge to go along with it. But they have to start having balanced professors and department heads, deans and whatnot, where there's going to be a mix, shall we say, of left and right-leaning individuals. I realize it is a quota system, which means it may not necessarily work, but there has to be some way for the colleges and universities to account for, well, basically it's recruitment of the far left. I mean, Lenin is credited as saying, give me your kids for 5 years and I will keep them forever. Not literally, but philosophically, yes. So how this is all going to unfold, I don't know. It'll be interesting. And I don't have, honestly, much more to say other than that. This is far, far from over. So, and on that note, I got nothing more to say.
Okay, V was temporarily on, and now he's not on anymore, so maybe he will come back, but...
Can I mention some other weird stuff about this, too?
Go ahead.
Now, another thing that I forgot to mention about this was whenever they mentioned the gun...
I mentioned the gun... I
bullets.
mentioned the gun and the bullets during my show as well. So
now, these sayings that were written on those bullets, that's really, really messed up. This is another part of how this kid was fucked up in the head. Okay, like a lot of the stuff that he was putting on those bullets, they were video game tropes, and I recognize some of them. And not only were they video game tropes, but they were also tropes that people who trolled chats would say to antagonize people, stuff like that. And so what I really get from him is the fact that, first of all, he was pretty screwed up in the head, but second of all, I don't think I don't think that even his idea of what was going on politically was straight in his head. You know what I mean? So that was another messed up thing that was going on. I don't know if you knew that or not, about these being like video game tropes.
No, we didn't cover that. A big part of we discussed the events that occurred. We did get into some conspiracy stuff towards the end. We didn't get into detail about the bullets. I did because there was a lot of video coverage.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, there is a lot of videos tonight as well. There was a guy who broke down the logistics around the gun and the fact, and unfortunately I deleted the photos, the fact that the gun took a guy who was a professional gun operator. It took him 50 to 55 seconds to break that gun down. And he wasn't pumped full of adrenaline or anything like that. And then he demonstrated the process of taking the gun and putting it in a backpack, and it was too big to fit in a really large backpack. And the backpack that Tyler Robinson had on him was smaller than that. And if he had tried to leave by putting the gun down his leg, he would have broken his leg when he jumped off, when he exited off the roof. So there's a lot of inconsistencies there. There's also a lot of inconsistency around the texts. There's a huge weird conspiracy around around some government funding that a group that Tyler Robinson belonged to, and what me and V discussed in a lot of detail towards the end was who, and this is a question that I don't think a lot of people have asked, who actually benefited from Charlie Kirk getting assassinated. And when you broke that down into its basics, the people that benefit the most from Charlie Kirk's assassination are the people that want everybody in the country fighting with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the theory that I'm working on is that these individuals manipulated through this armed tranny group, and they got a fall guy in Tyler Robinson. And here's the thing, I've seen photos of him, and he's going up to the roof without the gun. So the gun was already there, right? So there's definitely a lot more going on there than meets the eye, right? I don't, at this point, although he's probably going to end up with a death sentence anyway, there's enough there on the surface to indicate that there's enough there to create a reasonable doubt that he was actually, or that he acted alone. He definitely did not act alone. The situation with the rifle and the way he fled, and the way those texts were sent to his roommate, that is not consistent with the actual narrative right now. There's also a bunch of other things that I could get into, like the fact that there was that book that came out, The Death of Charlie Kirk, 2 days before he was shot. The fact that the guy who was talking to Charlie Kirk the moment that he was shot had apparently gone on the record before the event and said a couple days before that there was going to be something big that was going to happen at that event. A couple days before, there were no ambulance. Even though there was a couple of thousand people there, there was no medical staff in attendance, which is mandatory pretty much everywhere. If you have a large crowd of group, you have to have medical first aid personnel on site. So there was a lot of there's a lot of inconsistencies there, which we don't want to really get into tonight because it's not the central focus.
Yeah, I was going to say one other thing with Kirk is that there was apparently the day before it all happened, someone posted on Amazon a book titled "The Shooting of Charlie Kirk," and now it suddenly has gone silent or it's disappeared. I'm just saying. So, anyway.
Yeah, I covered that as well. It's, okay. There's a lot going on there, but we don't want to get too long into this particular topic because it's not the focus of the show. You guys missed the Charlie Kirk episode, so I wanted to give you guys a chance to say something.
The two tropes that I wanted to mention was on the bullets. One was from, this is a game, the Furies. You guys know about that, right? It's the playing the playing chat for the role-playing games, the subculture. Yeah. It's where they dress up in anthropomorphic.
Furries,
animals. Yeah. Well, that's where one of them came from, and then Helldiver 2 is where another one came from. So, I mean, this guy was clearly all caught up in, like, the whole subculture, you know what I mean? So, and that right there was something that I thought was pretty strange. He was very distant, not really in reality, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, that's the perfect type of patsy that you want for if you're going to conduct something like this. There's definitely, I mean, again, like you said, and a couple of other people have said, like, there's layers to this that rival that of Robert F. Kennedy and John F. Kennedy. And, we might be I almost have a feeling we're going to be doing some more stuff on this. So, unless any of you guys have anything more to add, we're going to move on to we're going to move on to topic number 1 here. Because topic number 1 is actually tied into the Charlie Kirk thing, which is, by the way, also why I wanted some discussion about Charlie Kirk in the first place. But yeah, let me just timestamp this and we'll move into Iryna Zarutska. Okay. So, I'm going to just say this right off the bat about the Iryna Zarutska situation. Iryna Zarutska, without Iryna Zarutska, you don't have a Charlie Kirk. When Iryna Zarutska got killed, it's actually here. Let me just find a photo of her. There we go. We'll use this one. When Iryna Zarutska got killed, murdered, it freshened up a storm. So I actually do have the video of the event itself. It is just giving you a giving you a heads up. This is really graphic. It runs for about a minute. Yeah, but have a look. It is the full video. All right, so here we go.
God damn.
Yeah. So as you can clearly see, now there is first of all, there is a valid explanation as to why people didn't immediately jump in. First of all, if you're looking at it from the back or the side, it didn't look all that bad because you didn't see the blood pooling or a lot of blood until Iryna Zarutska falls over. But second of all, and this was explained to me by a psychologist, unfortunately, I didn't load up that particular video. But what also might happen here is that the people saw this and they were either in, yeah, there was a bit of shock involved in this, and there was like fight or flight, and it was like fight, flight, or freeze. So nobody actually reacted for a few seconds until they actually started to process what happened, and then somebody acted. But unfortunately, because of where Iryna Zarutska got stabbed, it was too little too late. I mean, the really bad part about it was the way he just so brazenly went, "I got me a white girl," as he's walking off the bus. I mean, just really, truly disgusting. But what was really also disgusting, and this is probably one of the reasons why people got really pissed off about this, was the anti-white racism that was involved. I've got a very particular video here. I played it on the Charlie Kirk thing. I will also play it here. Yes, this is what a portion of the African American community said about this, about a guy that just goes over and randomly stabs some white girl who wasn't doing anything except just minding her own business. This is what this one asshole had to do here, and I'll just play this, and then we'll get into some of the other stuff. Okay?
Yeah, you read that correctly. This piece of garbage is called Euro slander, and he should literally go to jail. Because not only is he happy that Zarutska was murdered in cold blood, he said we need more. And he makes video after video mocking her death, pretty much saying, "Oh, Austin Metcalf just got a new friend. Zarutska has entered Agartha." And he said, "Where is the GoFundMe for DeCarlos Brown? I'd like to donate. Thank you for your service, Brody." So he's literally saying that he wants to pay for the black man who murdered that innocent white girl in cold blood, and he thanks him for his service. And then in this video, he pretty much says he's going to be donating to his GoFundMe, and he says, "Thank you for being such a lovely gentleman." Look at this guy's evil smile. He literally just said, "I just heard about DeCarlos Brown, can hardly contain my excitement." He said, "Carmelo Anthony, Rodley Hinton, Raja Jackson, and now this, thank you God." And one of his supporters was like making sure, and they're like, "Well, what are your thoughts on DeCarlos Brown?" And he said that he fully supports him, fully supports his actions, the cold-blooded murder. And he keeps laughing at this innocent woman and her death by saying it's a bad day to be an immigrant. And then he's laughing, and he says DeCarlos Brown is a legend. And then he said innocent and white in the same sentence pretty much doesn't exist. So not only did she die because of soft-on-crime leftist judges, you have cowards like this guy laughing at her cold-blooded death. And these same people literally said that we should have empathy for George Floyd, a convicted felon who resisted arrest, but then literally call for violence and laugh at an innocent white woman being murdered. This man should go to jail, and all of those news media websites that did not cover her death should be held accountable, and those lawyers who were soft on crime, those judges who were soft on crime, all of them should be held accountable. They laugh at us, they mock us, they wanted our empathy during George Floyd, but where's our empathy now? Where is it? If you think he should go to jail, and if you want soft on crime policies to end, if you want no more Iryna Zarutskas to happen ever again, I want you to comment in the comments. I want you to tell the media, to tell everyone these 3 words. White lives matter!
Okay, so yeah, you can see from the reaction that this guy had, there was a lot of anger there. And there was a lot of anger, and it was directed at the mainstream media for damn good reason, I might point out. And, Iryna Zarutska cocked and loaded the gun, and Tyler Robinson was just pulled the trigger. Because I remember this quite specifically, right? Like, I was thinking the day before Charlie Kirk got murdered, that it's like Iryna Zarutska was like almost like a trigger event, right? And it's like it's going to take just one more event and things are just going to explode. because like the way the media intentionally ignored this event, because it was like, let's face facts. I mean, you remember Nihilist? I mean, Nihilist would have been all over this one. I think Rusin would agree with me on that. And
Oh, yeah.
and it's like, and he would be legitimately pissed off, though. I mean, it's, yeah, I mean, like, this is a race-based killing. Okay, yeah, whatever the fuck is, I can't remember his name. He had mental issues, but I mean, we actually covered this on the Charlie Kirk show, because the Iryna Zarutska murder and what happened with Charlie Kirk are invariably intertwined together. Like, they are linked. And Iryna, without Iryna Zarutska beforehand, what happened to Charlie Kirk might not have pushed things over the edge. Is literally what might have happened here. Okay. In terms of her actual physical appearance, I mean, yeah, let's face facts here. I mean, you know, she's not a 10, but she's definitely, I mean, I would give her a solid 8 or 9. I mean, her boobs aren't particularly good, but I mean, I've seen photos of her in the bathing suit and whatnot. I mean, she's got a classic model figure. She's got that Eastern European sexiness about her. I think we would all agree. And it's like, yeah, she had a boyfriend and everything, but I mean, she wasn't, yeah, like, just your typical boilerplate, pretty blonde girl. You know, like, there was nothing really special or spectacular. Probably wasn't really all that political or whatnot. Was just smart enough to get the fuck out of Ukraine before things got too hot over there, is what happened. And, you know, yeah, there was actually a GoFundMe started up for Ketanji Brown, or whatever the hell his name was. Hold on a second. I'm going to find out what the name of this guy's Iryna Zarutska's murder is, because I keep it keeps.
It was Charles something. I know that much.
Okay, let me just take a look at his name here. All right, because I can never remember his name.
I just
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, it's actually a little bit difficult to find this guy's name.
The Carlos Brown.
The Carlos Brown. Yeah, the Carlos Brown Jr. Okay, yeah. The Carlos Brown Jr. comes from a good old family of criminals. His brother is in jail for murder. His dad was in jail. Yeah, the ultimate, and this is the immediate response to what happened with Iryna Zarutska. The response to that is that, yeah, I don't care if they come from a poor background. I don't care if they come from a disadvantaged background. I don't care if they're mentally ill. This is the sentiment from a lot of people. Right? I don't really give a shit about that. Fuck sympathy. These people are committing fucking crimes, and they need to be punished for them. Like, fuck sympathy. I'm sick to fucking that. That was a big thing that started making the rounds after this happened. And that was already in the air, and the gun was loaded and cocked. And then what happened to Charlie Kirk immediately afterward basically put it right over the top. Yeah, there's not really a whole lot else I can say about it. It was tragic. And oh yeah, the Carlos here had 14, count them, 14 previous fucking convictions, and he was still let out. So yeah, there was a failure of the system around this to boot. And that also pissed a lot of people off, because again, it was a liberal judge. And oh yeah, the absolutely clueless response that the mayor had to it, and the fact that as the same thing happened with AFD and the mysteriously unalived members of AFD, like the mainstream media only started covering this after the alt media started running with it, right? Once the alt media started running with it, the mainstream media kind of went, oh, well, yeah, we have to. And of course, right, they downplayed it and they fucked around with it. This is the same sort of thing they did with Charlie Kirk. And it was like, yeah, the way the mainstream media, the way the establishment reacted to this added fuel to the fire. And that fuel was still burning when a guy by the name of Tyler Robinson went over and shot somebody and basically poured gasoline on a fire that was still burning pretty hot, right? So now you've got yourselves a royal mess. And and like all of the stuff that What If Alt History was talking about earlier this year about the upswing in political violence, well, that's probably going to start now. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Roger.
Okay, so this DeCarlos Brown was a 34-year-old. He was arrested 14 times in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, before the stabbing, with criminal charges dating back to 2007. Now, on April 11, 2014, he was convicted of breaking and entering. While on probation, he was arrested for armed robbery and possession of a firearm by a felon. He was also convicted of armed robbery and incarcerated in state prison from 2015 till 2020. And upon release, he initially lived with his family, but his mother eventually told the news that he was diagnosed with schizophrenia at that point and displayed violent behaviors at home. Now, according to his mother, she sought involuntary commitment but was denied. The Associated Press reported that involuntary commitments are difficult to obtain unless a court finds the person to be dangerous. Now, North Carolina reduced the capacity of state hospitals in the early 2000s, and the average wait time for a psychiatric bed was 16 days in 2024. Now, after Brown stopped taking psychiatric medication, his mother brought him to a homeless shelter, and in January of 2025, he repeatedly called 911 about a man-made material inside him that was controlling his body. Now, Brown was charged with misuse of 911 and released without bond afterwards. And this was all the stuff that happened before he decided to kill this girl. So that's pretty much my breakdown of it. If you don't want to take care of your mentally ill, then freaking bad shit like this is going to happen. It's something that people keep ignoring, and the amount of money that's been taken out of freaking treatment is something that's also been an issue with me too. That happened shortly after I got out of a treatment facility, and I'll tell you what, freaking, I'm a poor kid. I've always been poor my entire life, and if that wasn't around for me, I wouldn't be sober today. So mental illness is something that's real. So is addiction, and if you don't want to recognize it, then you're going to get more and more stuff like this. It's tragedy, really. She was a beautiful girl, so that's all I got to say about it.
Yeah, I'm going to say if it wasn't for government-sponsored medical for addiction treatment back in the 80s, I probably wouldn't be here either. because I'm not going to go into the situation, but that was also the case. Rearson, your comment.
Well, I mean, you just nailed you nailed that ball out of the park. People like that are the perfect candidates for the likes of, I don't know, MK Ultra or other things to be experimented on. I mean, it could very well be that with his time in the mental hospital, whatever you want to call it, circuit, they could very easily have picked him out and could have implanted something into him. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised of his story that something's been put into him. Could very well be true. I mean, what is it? Typically, you're looking at about 10 plus, maybe 20 years where the military has access to the newest technology before it starts to trickle into the consumer side of things. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibilities. In fact, I consider it to be highly probable. So, and here's something you might want to look at. Joker, Better Bachelor, just did a video today. And, I mean, this is completely off topic, but you should be able to see that there is a connection here where it takes about 50 to 60 years of things that are decided upon being implemented in. Women really don't want kids and they don't want a family. Whereas with men, it's pretty much it's one of the highest priorities that they have. And this was on a NBC Pulse polling set of questions. So, and I'm saying this in context to this, that Gloria Steinem way back in the day admitted that the CIA, I believe, were fully supporting her with spreading feminism. And she said that on TV. So, if someone is of the opinion that the government is probably some dark branch of the government, I'll say it that way, some dark branch of the government isn't pulling the strings to where we have this stupidity and insanity going on right now. I'm sorry, folks, but the signs have always been there. I mean, Canada turned to the shithole country that it is. It started with Trudeau Sr., or as I like to call him, the cucked prime minister, way back when. And my mom remembers what Canada was like before. And after him, everything changed and it's turned into what it is now. So, I don't know. I mean, to me, really, there's not much that's outside the realm of possibilities that I may not have already thought of. Or if I was to hear someone say something that's completely far off topic or far off base, shall we say, like, yeah, I can see that actually happening. So, I don't know what else to say, because there really isn't much more to say. So, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, like I said, without Iryna Zarutska, I don't think the visceral, angry response that happened after Charlie Kirk would have been as strong as it once was. These two are going to be they're going to be talking about Iryna Zarutska's murder. She's going to be one of those murders that they're going to be talking about 100 years from now. It's kind of a hell of a way to get yourself immortalized. But, I mean, yeah, like, in all likelihood, Iryna Zarutska's name is going to be remembered before it is still going to be on people's lips long after we're all dead. That's a legit, real possibility. Not that I care, but I mean, I'm pretty sure that's not exactly how Iryna would have wanted to go out, but I mean, like the two of them happening so close together. And also, by the way, you have to, and because we're doing the Britain immigrant protest march as well today, we've also got that. And do I not have? Oh yes, that's right. I will finish this off by playing the Crowder Iryna. It's a 2.5-minute video about Crowder and Iryna. I'm just going to finish off this topic by bringing up Steve Crowder and Iryna Zarutska here just right now. And this will finish off this topic, and then we'll move on to the next one. So here we go.
And I just watched this footage again. Hey, white America, I think you just found your George Floyd. You're 12 times more likely to be murdered by a black American than the other way around. And this is not to condemn all black Americans. That's a statistical reality. And it needs to stop. You just found your George Floyd. You watched that tape? Let me ask you, are we supposed to be as offended, seeing, if we were to put these two in a side by side, as offended at George Floyd's situation than Zarutska's? Because I'm not. I'm not even close. There are a few key differences. First off, George Floyd is not part of a demographic in this country that is 12 times more likely to be murdered than a white person. That's the first difference. Second difference is Zarutska didn't choose to jam a speedball up her ass. It's hyperbole to make a point. Zarutska didn't live a life harming those around her and living as a degenerate. Zarutska didn't choose to rob a woman at gunpoint with the child in the home. Zarutska didn't choose to resist arrest. Zarutska didn't choose to ask that the air conditioning be turned on in the car until she didn't like it anymore so she be taken out of the car and continue resisting arrest. Zarutska chose to get on a train. Bet you the whole country won't burn down. I bet you won't see $2 billion of damages in the first couple of months. I bet you not anything close to that. So yeah, there's some key differences. I hope I've crystallized them for you. But white America, you just found your George Floyd.
Yeah, man. That one.
That hit home.
That hit home. Yeah, it pissed a few African Americans up. But I mean, again, right? The response of some of the African American community to this was utterly disgusting, right? And that played into the anger that was still burning when Charlie Kirk got killed. And then, of course, the African American community went completely nuts about that, and they made it about them even though there were no black people involved in Charlie Kirk's murder. Right?
Okay. What's the proper word we would use here? The professional victim industrial complex.
Exactly.
I'm not going to say any more on this one. I mean, it's just a big case of whatever. When you have a sense of it, the people that are screaming the loudest over this have the strongest sense of their entitlements. They're entitled to their entitlements, as was said in Canadian politics quite a while back.
See, here in the United States, it's more of one hand washes the other. Like, don't read too much into that. One group it does a favor for another group because they need people at those gatherings. Okay, so the gay people will do favors for the black people. The black people will do favors for the Arabs and so forth, and that's because that's what they do. That's why you see gay people at a Black Lives Matter protest, even though it freaking has nothing to do with gay people.
That explains a few things. Okay, all right.
That's why they. I mean, that's how they do this stuff.
Fair enough. I don't have anything to say on this one except that it's just. Well, no, actually, no. I do want to quickly say again. in terms of race relations, which again, we're all the human race. If that was the case, I wouldn't have my son. Naroki wouldn't be around. V wouldn't have his mixed heritage that he does. So this whole thing of race is bullshit. So, gotta be said. It has to be constantly stressed, my honest opinion. 2, quote-unquote race relations deteriorated rapidly under Obama. And this is symptomatic, in my honest opinion, of what was said about the capacity of mental institutions that cannot hold enough people. You're going to have more incidents like this, I think, pop up over the next little bit, because the really bad people are, I hope this is the case, are being rounded up, and then they're just trying to sow as much chaos before they get caught up themselves. Anyway, I'm going to go make myself some hot water. I'll be back in a few minutes, gentlemen.
All right.
Okay, yeah. So that was rather poignant. And yeah, Zarutska, like I said, Zarutska pushed it right to the line. And then Charlie Kirk, but they've now officially crossed the line. Where this ends up, nobody knows. If I were to speculate here, and this is me getting ahead to 2026, there's not going to be a fucking red wave in 2026. Like, it's not going to happen. A blue wave. Sorry, there's not going to be a blue wave in 2026. Like, it's just not going to happen. They'll make some noise about it, but it's not going to happen. Yeah, the political response to this, I got to point out that 58 members of Congress voted against having a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk. Although, again, Charlie Kirk's not on it's a good goddamn thing, too, because we would be here for till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning if we had Charlie Kirk on as a topic. But yeah, like I said, these two murders are intimately intertwined, and they will always be intimately intertwined. That's really all I got to say on it. Rest in peace, Iryna Zarutska. You were a very pretty girl who deserved a fate better than the one delivered to you by this asshole. This asshole is going to get the death penalty, just like the murderer of Charlie Kirk is also going to get the death penalty. Although in the case of Iryna Zarutska's murder, it's pretty much cut and dried at this point. So that is pretty much all there is to it. So let's move on to the next topic here, which is, drum roll, please. Oh yes, this is one I think I will start out with Nepal, because Ryerson has got some experience with Japan, and I don't see Ryerson currently around. So I will do this particular post a biggie by starting out with this. In 72 hours, 3 different governments collapsed. All of them did so. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, I totally forgot about 1350. Okay, let me just bring up this meme for a second before I'm going to have to go back and cover this. This meme is actually making the rounds right now about Iryna Zarutska. And it's making the rounds because it's like black crime, and the disproportionate amount of crime committed by African Americans is part of the issue here. Yeah, okay, it's a racially loaded topic, but yeah, it is true. But anyway, getting back to this topic here. 3 governments collapsed in the process of 72 hours. I have them in order as Japan, Nepal, and France. Since Ryerson, unless Ryerson is actually here at the moment. Ryerson, are you here?
He said he had to go get some hot water.
Okay, well then I will start out with Nepal. All right, I have a video for Nepal here. I have to find it. But I do have a video for Nepal. Yeah, here it is. Nepal protests. I will play this, and then I will get into the details as to what happened with Nepal, and then I will get into the details of what happened with France, and then when Ryerson gets back, we will talk about Japan. But here is Nepal.
Nothing captured the moment like the flames licking Nepal's parliament building on 8th and 9th of September. Thousands of protesters breached security barricades, shouting anti-government slogans as thick smoke rose over Kathmandu. Within hours, the Home Minister resigned. Within a day, the Prime Minister did too. Private homes of top leaders, from Sher Bahadur Deuba to President Ramchandra Paudel, were vandalized or torched. This was more than a demonstration. It was a dramatic rejection of an entire political class. These protesters are not veterans of the Maoist insurgency or the 1990 movement. They are digital natives who learned politics on YouTube and Reddit, not in underground cells. They earn side income from TikTok, code freelance for clients abroad, and organize on encrypted apps. The social media ban threatened not just free speech, but livelihoods and identity. When the state tried to unplug them, they rewired Nepal's politics instead.
So yeah, that was Nepal. The issue there was it was actually a communist government, and again, right, there's the theme that's going to run through all three of these countries, in that you have a situation where leftist policies were being passed in all these places, and again, right, like Fiverr, like a lot of the people who do services for you on Fiverr are based out of Nepal, are based out of Bangladesh, are based out of Bhutan, are based out of India, right? This is an actual part of, like, there's people in these countries that make their living doing some of the more menial, like data entry and that type of thing work that Westerners either don't have the time to do or don't want to do, and they will basically like market this off to somebody on Fiverr to do for them. And there's a lot of people in Nepal that actually make their living doing this, right? And this is the dual nature of the internet. Yes, it is a place for making money. Yes, it is a place of commerce in trade and free exchange of ideas. There's a yin to the yang. And this is something that also happened around Iryna Zarutska, right? The yang is that you also allow more political information to come in, which, by the way, is one of the reasons why France and Brazil have outlawed Rumble, right? That's why Brazil banned VPNs. That's why the Canadian government, the British government, the Australian government, and a lot of these Western governments are so concerned about misinformation and hate speech with ditto marks on it, right? Because it's like, or for instance, what happened with the AFD, right? Like that type of information. In the past, it was very, very easy to bury that information before the internet. But with the information out there, and now with the alt media being a legitimate source of information, right, that sort of thing happens. So you had a communist government in Nepal that was probably backed by the Chinese government, and they shut down the internet probably as a form of control of their own population. Unfortunately for them, or fortunately for us, the digital economy in Nepal is a big part of the economy, especially with the younger crowd in Nepal. Like, they do a lot of the more menial electronic tasks that a lot of people in the rest of the world don't want to do, and they get paid to do it, and they make good money doing it. So they fucked with the middle class. The middle class got really fucking angry, and they revolted, and that's what happened. Now, let's go on to France. Here we go.
It's not. Nobody likes France.
Yeah, well, I think you'll like this then. All right, so let's look at France.
All right, and it is official. Prime Minister Bayrou has lost his confidence vote once again, throwing Parliament into disarray and forcing President Macron not only to have egg on his face once again, but also to make a significant decision rather soon, Melissa.
That's right, and it's a fairly resounding defeat. Remember that this was a confidence vote that François Bayrou himself had called. In the end, only 194 lawmakers gave him their confidence. It's 364 that voted against giving him their confidence, and for a variety of reasons. And so the question now, whether this absolute majority of 280 against him can now, what happens next? How Emmanuel Macron can appease a sufficient number of those very divided parliamentarians. Remember, some are on the far right, some are on the far left. They have very differing views about what needs to happen next. How he can appease enough of them to give them the confidence to back anyone, frankly, at this stage, who's going to be responsible for making extremely unpopular decisions. Remember, François Bayrou lost this vote on the back of that very unpopular announcement back in July that he was going to slash 44 billion from next year's budget. That involved things like slashing 2 public holidays, a number of cuts that he believed were necessary for France to try and redress its books. The next prime minister who tries to do that, and inevitably someone will have to try to, is likely to face exactly the same kind of consequences as we've seen here tonight. So a very difficult circle for Emmanuel Macron to square, particularly, Bianna, when so much of the anger, both parliamentarian and on the streets that we're likely to see on Wednesday, is now directed immediately at him and his presidency, and the shambles in which it appears to be heading towards the conclusion in 2027. Bianna.
All right, and for those of you who are just joining us, that headline rings true that you're seeing right there on the lower third of your banner. French government has collapsed officially as the prime minister has failed a no confidence vote within parliament and will have to tender his resignation. The headline here also, if we're going to bring in one of our other contributors here, Anna Kubin, can talk about the significance of France and President Macron having to appoint now what will be his 5th prime minister. That is one option for him. He could form another coalition. He could form or call for a snap election. That is something that some of the leaders of the far right and left are basically daring him to do at this point. Just give us a sense of where things stand right now following this decision.
Well, Macron will probably face the same issue that's currently tanked this government. Fundamentally, France needs to control its budget. It needs to get its spending under control. At the end of last year, its levels of debt were around 113% of its GDP, which was one of the highest in the Eurozone. Now, François Bayrou, the Prime Minister that's just lost his confidence vote, he has made the point that France is in grave danger financially. It needs to make some hard decisions. And he's tried to put forward this 44 billion euro savings plan, which included removing a couple of national holidays, freezing spending in many areas. Now, this was very unpalatable to both the right and the left, and it seems difficult to imagine that any incoming prime minister is not going to face the exact same problem. To give you a sense of the scale of this challenge that France currently faces, François Bayrou was saying in July that France risked getting crushed by debt, and actually the interest payments alone on France's ballooning debt would amount to about 100 billion euros in 2028. And that would be the single largest government expense of France, bigger than the education budget. So that gives you a sense of the stakes here, that the scale that the new incoming French government will have to face. I just can't see that there's going to be a huge amount of willingness in an even more divided parliament potentially to make these hard choices.
Melissa, if I can go back to you and sort of zoom out, obviously this is a domestic crisis here, but it has implications far beyond that of France, as Macron over the last 3 years, and I would say even over the last few months, has really stepped up as the leader of European allies there in terms of its defense and strong defense and support of Ukraine. Does this distract him from that in any sense, and what are the ramifications if that does happen?
Well, I think I think on the contrary, what you've seen here in France, I was talking a moment ago about that growing anger and that you're likely to see spill out on the streets on Wednesday and then again on the 18th. There's a lot of anger here in France by what many people perceive to be a French president who spent a lot of time dealing with foreign crises and shining on the world stage, even as the political situation and arguably the question of finances and how to deal with the debt and how to manage his majority or losing his majority, how the president has dealt with that. And I think that's also why there's a great deal of anger towards him. But you're quite right. This is a French crisis, but it becomes also a European one, since it is according to Europe's own spending rules that France has been being ticked off for years now and trying to encourage to get things back in shape. And it has implications also for the Eurozone. There's been a lot of talk these last few weeks about the fact that just like 15 years ago, Greece and Italy, France is seeing rising borrowing costs, with political classes apparently unable to agree on the sort of austerity measures that might be taken to help address that looming crisis. There is a big difference here, which France is much too big to fail. It's Europe's second biggest economy. But the question of the ungovernability or not of France over the next few months does pose itself at the Eurozone level going forward. So all eyes very much on what Emmanuel Macron does now. We expect François Bayrou, in the wake of that fairly resounding vote, a majority of 280 against giving him the confidence of MPs. He is now expected to tender his resignation to the president, who will accept it. The question is who he decides to hand what is likely to be a poison chalice to next.
Yeah. Who will be the lucky person raising their hand to take on that job? I'm not sure. Anna Kubin, final question to you as far as the consequences of this no confidence vote for the economic future, at least in the short term, for France. I know in the last hour you were talking to us about your conversation on just that point with Nobel Prize winning economist Joseph Stiglitz. What did he tell you?
Well, I asked him the question that Melissa has just alluded to there, which is, is France in the same position that Greece was in about 15 years ago? And his resounding answer was no. Things were much more serious back then. Greece had to have several IMF bailouts. There isn't really an indication that France is in the same position. France is a growing economy. The IMF predicts it's going to grow this year and next by about 1% next year. So, there are many things to rave about France's economy, but the debt is a huge issue, and I think we can see this with investors today. The yield on the 10-year French government bond is rising. It's heading towards Italy. It's around 3.4% right now. And what that basically means is that the higher the yield on the bond, the more investors basically see holding French debt as being a risk. They see the risk of the government not being able to repay that debt as being higher. But what's interesting is that the yield on this debt is now higher than Greece, and nobody would have thought that a few years ago.
No, and the headline that we're getting now, Prime Minister Bayrou will be officially submitting his resignation to President Macron on Tuesday morning after losing this no confidence vote.
Okay, so that was France. And yeah, Roger, I'm with you. Who gives a damn about France? Keep in mind, that was a CNN video. That was a CNN pullout that I did there. They left out the fact that the prime minister, along with the president, have introduced a substantial amount of leftist policies that are not, in general, very popular with the general public, and the French government and the elites in France are clearly at odds with them, and that it's starting to obviously boil over into the House now. And again, it was both the left and the right that did this down. It was like the center that didn't. But now we also have Ishiba of Japan, who was also forced to step down. This one was done over the fact that Ishiba wanted to bring in a shit ton of immigrants from India. And of course, when you're talking about Japan, Japan is a little bit like xenophobic to begin with. But I mean, what's also not so much known is that there have been a lot of Japanese that have gone abroad and have seen what has been happening in the West, and they get back to Japan where it's not necessarily like this, and there has been some pressure in Japan to make this happen. And Ichiba wanted to basically open the door to larger numbers of immigrants. And it's like all of the Japanese students and all of those people that have gone abroad and seen what's happening in North America and Western Europe and Australia and whatnot, they're going back and they're telling their family what's going on there. And yeah, no big surprise. Huge protests. I mean, you can maybe place some of this in terms of it being Japanese supremacy. And by the way, if you want to talk about a group of people that are really supremacists, like the Asians make the whites look tame by comparison in terms of their racism. But anyway,
we never talk about that.
Yeah, we never talk about that. But yeah, here's the video of Ishiba resigning, and then we will get into the full topic, because I've already pretty much talked myself out about this one.
I thought that was already the topic. Like, hell, I was falling asleep during the France one.
Yeah, well, no, that was an 8-minute long one. This is not 8 minutes. This is only about 1:40.
There's nothing worse than watching anything that concerns France. Okay. 15 freaking constitutions.
自由民主党総裁の職を辞することといたしました。
I take that back.
米国関税措置に関する交渉に
Yeah, you have to read
一
this
つの
one.
区切りがついた今こそがそのしかるべきタイミングであるとこのように考え後進に道を譲る決断をいたしました。総理、先ほど後進に道を譲りたいという趣旨の発表。私どもの政権とトランプ政権との信頼関係の下で成り立った合意でございますので、私どもの政権においてその責任を全うすべきでありましたが、このような形になったことは実に心残りであります。その上で、総理は参院選後にですね、先日中国で行われた軍事パレード、中国、ロシア、北朝鮮の首脳が並んで立つ姿を目の当たりにするとき、今後さらに厳しい安全保障環境になる、その危惧を禁じ得ません。
にですね、この自民党の動きがどのように影響したのかお伺いします。
総裁選挙には出馬はいたしません。それは申し上げておきます。
ございます。
Okay, so all three of these countries had one thing and had one thing in common, is that all three of these countries were attempting to bring in rather unpopular leftist ideas. In the case of Nepal, actual to control the population. Hold on. Each one was a slightly different issue. In France, it's just corruption and economic mismanagement, and the fact that the elites that govern France are completely detached from the reality of the person in France, and specifically the immigration issue in France, and that the anger that is causing. In Nepal, it was a full-blown communist attempt to try to limit outside influence. And what they didn't realize is that there's a huge internet economy in Nepal. So shutting off the internet was cutting off a lot of people's livelihoods, and particularly the millennials and Gen Z, and they revolted. You know, they didn't know. They were, again, out of touch with their own population. Japan, okay, I don't necessarily know what the issue is in Japan. I do know that Japan has a really low birth rate, and they're having a hard time. They're going to be hitting the wall here very, very, probably a lot sooner than the countries in the West are, around about the baby boomer population and the aging population, who's going to pay for all that. it's going to be really painful, and how they manage that is going to be very interesting to see. But again, right, and I said this about Japan earlier, there's a lot of Japanese that travel abroad. Those Japanese, when they travel abroad, are brought up to speed about what's happening in the West, or what's happening in Australia, what's happening in North America. So they're hearing about all this, and it's like, so the Japanese government wanted to bring in, by the way, also extremely I won't say extremely xenophobic, but in terms of racism, Japan and even more so China are definitely a whole lot more racist and bigoted than most white countries are, to say the least.
Again, there's that washing machine commercial. The Chinese woman's getting boned by a black guy. She stuffs him into the washer. He comes out Chinese.
Yeah, I remember that. That one, that would have never flown in the West. So anyway, there were massive protests against this in Japan. Not that I could really blame the Japanese for doing it. They've seen what's going on, and the Japanese government is going to be hitting the wall on this really goddamn soon, because the first of the baby boomers are already, like my brother, who was born in 1950, for instance. He is now 75, right? Like, he is, Jesus Christ, he's 75. Holy shit. God damn it. I totally forgot that about him. Yeah, he's 75. So he's definitely up there in terms of retirement, right? And it's like the boomers, that group between, say, 1945 and 1960, they're all hitting retirement age, right? And there's a lot of them, right? The boomers are really close to hitting are either going to be hitting retirement age or are at retirement age, and that's adding a huge financial strain on countries that already have corrupted themselves to the point where they're very heavily in debt already, and Japan even more so. And they got to come up with an idea. So why not do what they do in the West and bring in immigrants? The only thing is, though, is that they were very much still a kind of a closed society in Japan. And yeah, there is that racial superiority in Japan as well, but it's also been added into by the fact that you've had students travel abroad, and they've got those people that have traveled abroad have got to see what's happening in the West, and that information has made its way to Japan as well. So yeah, you've got all that to boot. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Roger so Roger can have his say.
Oh man, can you hear me?
Yep, I'm just choosing to ignore you.
Okay. Well, the only thing I have to say about that is never freaking take a country serious that has had 15 different constitutions. Okay. With that, I'm going to hand this over to Steve, because I've lost respect for France. I've actually demoted them, and I've freaking pushed Canada up above France, just so you guys know. I have more respect for Canada than France now. So you guys have been promoted. France has been demoted.
Yay, we're ahead of France. That's not much of an accomplishment.
Oh, God.
Yes, believe it or not, it really is. I just finished doing a show. Me and Mark Edworthy finished Roger's Real Time Talk Show, and we were talking about Europe and the EU and the history of Europe since the French Revolution. And that is a ridiculous country. I'm surprised it's still freaking a country. So that's all I got to say.
Okay, I know you got some stuff to say about Japan here, Rearson, so go right ahead.
Well, the first thing I'm going to say about Nepal, that's never been on my radar, so that was news to me, honestly and literally. In terms of France, France has been described as being an ungovernable country, and maybe it's finally gotten itself caught up to that phrase or that saying. I'm not entirely sure. Japan, oh God. Japan has had nothing but political scandals and corruption going back as early as the 1930s, and it seemed to stabilize for a little while, but the time period that you and I were in Banff was the tail end of the Japanese boom, and that's now basically 30 years of being in a depression. I remember my spouse talking about how her mom had a job at some factory. I don't remember what it was. It was semiconductor based. I don't remember. And that shut down. I believe that Canada now actually is outpaced Japan in terms of GDP overspending. I wish I was joking, but I'm not. There's enough bits of information that I've got in my head that are scattered right now because I wasn't anticipating this as a topic, or at least I completely forgot all about it, or I didn't think I was going to be on for tonight. So the way that assets could be valued allowed your last year's total estimates, which included projections, I believe is what it was. It almost feels like it was basically some kind of a derivative based method of doing something, of overvaluing your home or your business or whatever. So it was something to the effect that Japanese businesses, corporations could add in their profits plus their estimates or something to that effect, and could get bigger and bigger loans. And then finally the bubble burst and Japan's a shell of its former self. I mean, Banff is a lot more brown than it used to be. There are still Japanese residents. There's one woman that I remember from the Rimrock. I saw her just before she took off to Japan. I don't know if I'll see her again. Not that I had some interest in her, but she's still around. I don't know who else that's Japanese that I would remember that is still there. And again, that is literally 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah. When I was there in 2019, I noticed that the number of Japanese restaurants was down significantly.
Yep.
And it was like the Japanese workers there had been replaced by people from India, from people from Latin America. There's also a lot that the Philippines. I've also noticed that there's significantly fewer French Canadians out there as well.
Yeah, where I work, I'm just going to leave it at that. I haven't really noticed too many frogs. Like, I really haven't. And what was my current employer, there aren't that many. There's one French girl that I work with, one Quebecois, and that's it. Like, I cannot place anyone that's Quebecois besides her.
Yeah, for me, when I was at the Rimrock, there were 5 or 6, maybe 7 employees at the Rimrock that were French Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
More Australians than French Canadians, which is something that, I mean, again, if it was Whistler, that would definitely be the case. But in Banff, it's usually when you and I were there before, it was way more French Canadians than there were Australians. It's like now it's almost dead even.
Well, like I said, I don't recall anyone that's French Canadian that is there.
Yep, and the number of Japanese there's still a few, but nowhere near as many as there was when we were out there.
No, things have changed completely. The demographics there are not what I remember, to say the least. So, so the Japanese economy it's in the tank, or it's tanked, and that's being incredibly polite because it is. So, but my thought of Japan taking the time to, government spending has skyrocketed in Japan as of late, and this is over the last couple of decades. My spouse complains about, she kind of wishes that the government here would pay for dental, and they have, which reminds me, I need to apply for that stupid fucking program. But anyway, like she wants, in a sense, she wants the overspending in one regard as to what's happening over there to be more or less here, which is already being done, just not in the sense or capacity that she wants. I don't know if she fully gets what she's asking for. But the only way for Japan's economy to turn around is that they have to basically they'd have to declare bankruptcy and to be a complete and total full wipe. And we know what happens when that happens. Anything and everything that's government owned would be sold off to the highest bidder. It would be in one form or another what happened with Yeltsin, and be with Yeltsin way back in the day. And I could see the Chinese actually being very eager to swoop in and buy Japanese assets, which would be a complete fucking disaster. A total disaster. So there is no easy answer for this one for the government. And again, folks, the more liquidity that gets injected into an economy by the government, the more your inflation is going to hit. And it's not that it's going to make things more expensive. It means that your purchasing power of the yen, the loonie, the dollar, the pound, whatever, that goes away. That disappears. So the cost of living in Japan is expensive. You've got Japanese liberal women that are exhibiting the same traits with feminism as you see here in North America or Australia or the UK or wherever it's prominent. And they don't want children. Or those that do want kids, the husband or the possible husband, he's going to have to not only pay for his student loan to get a good paying job that hopefully he'll be able to keep for a very long time, but he also will have to pay for his bride, her student debt, and then there's the expectation that he's going to be able to make enough to buy a house. And
you wonder why Hikikomori has been ticking off like exponent. By the way, Hikikomori is the originator of the concept of MGTOW. Was effectively was borrowed from Hikikomori. One of the original people who met at Charlotte in Charlottesville when they had this meeting to come up with the concept of MGTOW. One of the guys that was at that meeting was actually from Japan.
Yeah. So, long story short, the expectation that men are there to carry the burden And this makes absolutely no sense. But I mean, but then again, too, it's an old woman in Japan traditionally is when she hits 25, and that's usually peak attractiveness and fertility overall. I mean, that's just how it is.
Well, I mean, I will say this about Asian women. They hold their age better, but when they go, man, boy, do they go.
Yep. Oh, I know. So, there is that as well, too. And, I mean, at the end of the day, it's... This would get me shot, I'm sure. I mean, it's just a lot of social engineering, a lot of social tinkering, social experimentation. It's all coming to a head at this point in time now. So, I mean, the Indians don't seem to understand the concept of pulling out. Let's call it for what it is. I mean, that's really what it is. If it isn't them, it's going to be the Muslims. And with replacement immigration policies is what has happened in France. It's what's happening in Canada. It's what's happening in the US. It's happening, again, the UK, Western countries. And also in Japan as well, too. I've noticed that there seems to be a trend of BBCs in Japanese porn now as well, too. So, and maybe that was partly due to the rise of that tennis player Osaka because her father's half black.
Break it back to Tomi Tanaka retired. That was a great tragedy for the porn industry in Japan.
Well, okay. There's a woman who has hit the wall, and those big tits of hers are going to be sagging. And
they were towards the end. They were definitely starting to sag, but
yeah. So,
bunch of crybabies. They're not even worth. I mean, don't pay no attention to those Japanese women, dude. They cry. What the hell, dude?
I was just going to say. I mean, it's almost like, that fucking scene in Splash when Tom Hanks asked Daryl Hannah's character, "What's your name?" and like, "How do you say your name?" and she says it, and she fucking breaks the glass. All the TV screens, the windows, it all fucking shatters. So yes, I know that's what they sound like. I had that for a while, and it doesn't really turn me on, I assure you. Anyway, but Japan is a mess that there is no easy way to fix it. The only way to fix it, which would piss off the voter base, is for the government to reel in spending, but that puts the pressure on the populace to pick up the bill that they've been relying on for the government to pay for. Like I said, dental, 30%. At one point, the government paid for 30%. Now it's up to about 70%. So the government's getting fleeced by its populace, but it's all in an attempt to keep the populace happy to keep voting the current government in. So the Japanese form of the democratic process is basically kind of proportionate representation in one regard. And you rarely, outside of, what was his name? Koizumi, I believe. Outside of him as prime minister for about 8 or 10, I think he was in power for about 10 years. You never, ever had a majority government. It was always coalitions. So at this point, like I said, it's a shit show, and it's a shit show of epic fucking proportions. So I'm glad that they've woken up, and I'm going to encourage my son to actually leave Canada because he's already thinking about it, and to go to Japan and live there. So I would be happy to go there and help with the population boom as well too, but that ain't gonna fucking happen. It's just not gonna happen. So I don't have anything more to say on this one, except it's the chickens are coming home to roost, and that roost is going to get very crowded very quickly. And yeah, I've said it before, or I said it to Naroki, or I said it to somebody anyway. I said, like, the next 12 to 18 months, shit is going to hit the fan. Everything is going to be moving and shifting that you've never seen before. And yeah, time will tell. And that's all they got.
Okay, so yeah, let's move on to because this is now we're into the Great Britain section. It's too bad Mark Edworthy's not here tonight. It would have been rather. Yeah, he hasn't been on in a while, actually.
Yeah, he's been taking a sabbatical. He's been vacationing to Guam, where he's partying, with freaking black women and having fun, drinking sherry and all that cool British stuff.
Oh, well, good on him. Anyway, so I got some video about the British March as well. There's definitely some stuff on this. I will start out with this one. It's called London Is Risen. By the way, it's got copyrighted music in it, so this will probably cause me to not be able to put this on YouTube. But ask me if I give a shit. But anyway, yeah, and then we'll get into the whole London immigrant. No, I don't give a shit. Anyway, here we go. This one, and then we got the one of the London immigration rally. Very interesting stuff. So here we go.
London has risen. Reports say up to 3 million patriots are flooding the capital right now. The biggest protest, the biggest stand in the history of the United Kingdom. This is not just a protest. This is for the common good. And this is for you, Charlie Kirk. Millions united to fight mass immigration. Millions standing against the destruction of British culture. Millions chanting your name, Charlie Kirk, in defiance. History has been made. The world is watching. Charlie, this is your legacy. For every patriot in the UK today, this is their duty. God bless the United Kingdom. God bless Charlie Kirk. And God bless Australia.
It's the biggest demonstration in British history. Britain has finally awoken. We've been waiting decades. They've had everyone scared. The British public are scared no more. This is never going away. Okay? Patriotism is the future. Borders are the future. We want our future.
Okay, so the next one here is a longer one. I think this might be. I'm not sure. I can't remember where I got this one from, but it's about 3 minutes long, and it's about the London immigration rally. I believe it's from a foreign source, because the domestic mainstream sources in Britain, with one exception, are not particularly good. At least Britain has one, Canada has none. But anyway, let's take a look at the second one. Oh yeah, the Times of India. That's right. Okay, yeah. So the whole thing with Maya Summers was, again, right. The situation. It's kind of ironic that Charlie Kirk is on the wall. Charlie Kirk has triggered something that has gone global. And I mean, yeah, as you can clearly see what happened over in Britain. I think that the situation with Maya Summers and the fact that the police arrested Maya Summers and not the disgusting pervs that were trying to apprehend her younger sister says a lot of, is something that basically caused a lot of the situation in Britain to kind of explode the way it did. And, I can't really say I'm honestly surprised. But again, right, what I really found, I have a story around when I was uploading photos and videos of this particular event. Now, there was a counter protest the next day on it, and you see the overhead shots of what was taking place with London. The mainstream media in Britain tried really, and I mean they tried really, really hard to make the make this counter protest look as big as the protest that had occurred before. The only problem was, though, is that, I mean, they couldn't rely on overhead shots because the overhead shots would make the protest look. There's no way that the pro-immigrant protest in Britain was as large as the anti-immigrant protest in Britain, right? I know this because none of the pro-immigrant protesters none of the pro-immigrant protests in Britain actually had like drone shots from overhead, and that was for a reason. This is the same sort of thing that happened when they had these protests last year. I can't remember specifically what it was, but I mean, I know they had one in Edmonton. I can't remember what it was over, but the mainstream media tried to make it look like the counter protests were as big as the other protests. And it's like, again, right, the drone shots clearly showed that they weren't, right? And the only reason that there were even that many protesters that showed up to that particular event, which I can't remember the name of right now, is because the unions actually gave their employees the day off to show up for the counter protest. So they had the AstroTurf in counter protesters, and I'm wondering if they did the same sort of thing over in Britain over this. It wouldn't surprise me if they did. This protest in Britain is huge. I am going to surmise you're probably going to start seeing, it doesn't matter whether it's Brazil or Nepal or Japan or Canada or the U.S., right? That's part of the reason why Kirk's assassination rang out so strongly, is because what's happening in the United States and what's going on there's a microcosm of what's going on worldwide, which suggests that there's a worldwide or a globalist effort to push this everywhere. So it's like, yeah, fleeing Canada or fleeing the United States to go somewhere else is actually not going to help you, because you're seeing this problem happen. You're seeing this problem happen everywhere, like everywhere. It's not just in the United States. It's not just in Canada. It's not just in Britain. It's happening everywhere. And because it's happening everywhere, it's like, yeah, so I mean, the situation with Maya Summers was an absolutely critical juncture with these protests in Britain. I can understand now why the British government wanted to keep Tommy Robinson confined to Alberta during the election, and that's basically what that was an attempt to do. because those charges that they brought against him were just a bunch of bogus bullshit. But I see why they tried to do it when he was out of the country. Yeah, good on Britain. Like you've got mass protests in Britain, you have a government on the collapsing in France, and you have Germany so desperate to hold on to power that they're starting to kill off their political rivals, at least standing from the outside looking in, right? So it's like, yeah, like you're starting to see levels of desperation and desperation to try to hold on to power happening everywhere. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Roger.
All right. So basically, with England, there's only one thing that I can really say about them, and I've been saying it for a while. It's shit or get off the pot. You know what I mean? How many years has it been now since freaking they've been involved with Brexit? And they have these issues happening with immigration, which is directly connected to the EU.
Well, they're not part of. They're not part of.
Yeah, they're not supposed to be. They're not supposed to be a part of it. But guess what? They're having immigration issues, and all of that immigration that everybody's talking about over in Europe is directly a direct result of the EU. And like I said, me and Mark just finished our show, and I can honestly tell you that freaking most of the immigration that started in Europe started after World War I and built up all this time because of, as the EU grew, they kept freaking importing immigrants in to do their labor for them. And now, you know, the EU freaking they keep freaking wanting to do that block politics like it actually was something that works. It's an old, outdated freaking 1800s freaking law or form of government that failed them each and every time, and that's what they're doing now. And they had that armor on, they were looking good, but they had one freaking chink in the armor, and that was their immigration and how they were doing this shit. And then when they opened up the borders and allowed people to travel freely, that was the downfall. And now freaking they can't close it, and that's why all these governments are having the issues they're having, is because of that over there. And that's the one thing I don't get with England and Ireland, man. They even though they're not Northern Ireland, at least, even though they are, quote, unquote, not a part of the EU anymore, they still seem to be sucked into the same issues that's going on over in Europe. And all I can say is, you know, shit or get off the pot. If freaking Brexit was passed in England, then it's time for them to start freaking stepping up and getting the hell out of the EU like they were supposed to do, 10 years ago? That's all I got to say about it, you know. Bad policing, too. At one time, freaking the police in England were freaking supposed to be the freaking model of what police officers were, because they're the ones who actually started police forces, you know. And now look at them. I mean, it's just ridiculous. They need to.
Look at what happened with the RCMP in Canada. They've declined really badly as well.
Mm-hmm. It's horrible. I mean, and this is, I mean, England. If you really take a look at England started freaking all of it. They started common law. They started freaking the first police forces, organized police force. Let me make that clear. You know what I mean? And then freaking all of a sudden they can't keep their freaking shit straight. You know what I mean? Cops used to walk the beat without a gun, you know what I mean? And people had respect for them. Now they can't do it. So, I mean, it's just ridiculous over there. I feel real bad for those people because they're freaking losing their culture, and it's more than talking about illegal immigrants. They don't have respect for their own police. They don't have respect for anything, and that's sad. So that's all I got to say about it.
Well, I mean, Tommy Robinson was exposing the human trafficking pedophilic rings in England, and the powers that be, the police and everybody, were doing their best to shut him down. And he's been in a I don't completely agree with him, but he's been in a very difficult situation just for being the whistleblower, and no one really took much notice of it. And I think we've covered this on more than a couple of occasions, but there have been trials of, generally speaking, Pakistani men, and it gets dismissed, or it gets a really light slap on the wrist, that sort of thing. And I mean, there were 2 female police officers jogging around, and they're there to arrest men that are catcalling them. The British have been really good at going after people on social media. So,
well, the next topic is about that very thing, but continue.
No, I won't be participating because I have to get up at 6:30. That's why I didn't want to do this tonight. But anyway, it's I don't even know where to start even to talk about this one. It's absolutely ridiculous. But again, it's ridiculous on this in the sense of it that it takes decades for shit like this to come to fruition, or to come to the point of society as to where it is right now. I mean, you're typically talking 40, 50, 60 years, and by that point, most people have the attention span that long of a bloody goddamn fucking goldfish. And then some. Again, I'll bring this topic up. When Castro Jr., Justin, fortified with about $600 million of funding with strings attached, he had suddenly the best possible coverage, even from conservative news outlets, because they weren't going to let that gravy train go away. And I could probably mention that to most Canadians, and I'm pretty sure maybe 15% of the people I would ask might remember that. Might. And again, when I saw that pop up in the staff room or the break room at a previous employer, I just went, oh, lovely. So now Canada has resorted to propaganda and buying off the media. Lovely. So, and look where we are now. Absolutely look at where we are now in Canada. Not directly related, but they are related. So, the British have finally... Well, I mean, there were enough citizens that were being defiant during the lockdowns in Britain that they were cutting down those camera towers. Oh, and they were implementing 15-minute city zones. They were breaking down those barriers as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, really what the British needed was one more push. And I'll circle it back again, with Charlie. Charlie is the catalyst that needed to be... I can't call him a queen piece on the chessboard, but I suppose in a sense he was. Well, no, I wouldn't go that far. I would say that
I'd go bishop, probably more of a bishop.
I'm thinking knight, actually.
I'm finding it weird that he's involved in English politics, to be honest with you. That's just...
Well, I mean, they were having support. They were having vigils in Korea and in South America and places where English wasn't the first language. over Charlie Kirk. So this is
one thing I do want to add to the whole thing with Kirk is that he was also he had strongly supported Alberta independence, and I completely fucking forgot about that. He posted a couple of memes.
I had forgotten about that as well. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
So the man is a catalyst for what needs to. He said the things that no one had the courage or didn't have the courage, the integrity, or the clout to say. So that's about that. All I've got to say about that one. But the British have found their balls. They've got their fighting spirit back. I mean, shit. I don't know the name of that bitch that was on one of the BBC channels, who was saying that you don't need to be. It's racist or being patriotic is wrong for you to have the actual British flag, the white with the red cross.
I remember that. Yeah. Oh wow.
That cunt needs to have. Well, I shouldn't say this, and I'm certainly not condoning it. But if she got mistreated as the young teenage girls have with the immigrant
Maya Summers, the one that like with Maya Summers, yeah.
If she got treated the way that young girls have been treated and young white girls have been treated in England, I wouldn't cry over it. Would not cry one fucking bit. So, and that's all I got to say on this one, gentlemen. I've got to get some sleep because 6:30 is going to come around way too damn fast. Have a good night, gents.
All right, I'm going to say this. British feminists have been remarkably silent about Muslim rape gangs in Britain. You can hear crickets talk when they talk about that. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic here because we're still gonna be on the topic of Great Britain here. Let me just get over here and timestamp it. Okay. Now, I didn't cover this at first because there were other things going on. Graham Linahan, when he landed in Britain, when he came back home to visit relatives or something like that, he was met at the airport by police who arrested him over I'm not lying about this, over his tweets. And Linahan was not anyway. Linahan has got some financial resources. He was able to get out of jail, and he was able to fight it. He came over to the United States. Well, Graham Linahan has applied for refugee status as a free speech refugee in the United States from Britain. Now, I have a video of this one as well, which I'm going to play, and then we're going to both Roger and I will have commentary on this. So anyway, here we go.
It's alleged that on the 19th of April 2025, you published a post on X that was deemed to be intended to stir up hatred, incite violence on the grounds of sexual orientation. What was the post? I'll tell you. You sure? Comedy writer, Godfather, Ted. Can you believe me? You're under arrest. I'm under arrest. You know what this country looks like to America? Do you know what it looks like to America? No, just put me under arrest. Everywhere have you been arrested? I hate you. I'm going to sue you into the ground. I'm going to sue you into the ground. I'm going to sue you into the ground. I'm going to sue you into the wall. I dare you. I dare you. I'm going over here some people.
Sir, calm down.
I'm going to
calm down. There's no need for it. There's no need for it. There's no need for it. Calm down.
Calm
down. Calm down.
I dare you. I've been surrounded by trans activists for 8 years. And then these guys are working for me. Infuriating. You scumbags are working for assholes that go into women's toilets.
women's rights don't work.
Yep, so Linahan got back to the United States and he immediately applied for refugee status as a free speech refugee. And it's not like I can really blame him. Like, you just listen to that video and I'm like, yeah, they actually arrested him over tweets. And it was like, wow, you got to be kidding me, right? Like, they arrested him over tweets. And, this is something you're going to start seeing here. Because Mark Carney has reintroduced a version of Bill C-63. Yeah, it's watered down compared to the one that Trudeau was trying to pass, but he's still trying to do it. Again, Mark Carney does not have a majority government in Canada, but the NDP is going to toe the line on this and is going to allow him to pass this bill, or the Bloc Québécois. And of course, right, just the absolute utter cluelessness of these individuals that they don't understand that. It's like, and here's the thing, right? In Canada, the media is intentionally ignoring this. And when we get into what happening with Keean Bexte, I'll be able to get into some more detail about it. But we've covered this before, where they sent 5 police officers to arrest an old man who basically did this thing with the pride flag that made it look like it was a swastika. They sent 5 officers to arrest this guy over that. Meantime, and then of course we have to get into Maya Wolf, who got arrested for defending her fucking sister, right? And you wonder why they had such a large protest in Britain last week, right? And it's like, again, right? I'm surprised that somebody didn't do this before, right? It's a bit of a political embarrassment to the British government now, because now they have to go to their closest ally and they have to justify why it is that the U.S. government should deport this guy back to Britain over free speech, right? Like, that's not gonna fly in the United States, right? And it's like, I cannot blame him, right? And of course, they did it to a guy who has the financial resources and wherewithal and media connections to hit back, and that's exactly what he did. Granted, Graham Linahan is not the most attractive guy in the world, but this isn't about that. It's the fact that they literally sent somebody to the airport to arrest him immediately over tweets. And it was like, again, right, you're seeing this happen in Britain all the time. So there's a faction inside the British government, just like there's a faction inside the U.S. government, and there's also a faction inside the Canadian government that is pushing for this stuff, right? Just like the situation with Tate, where the British government, hold on a second, the British government is, like just coming up with these rules and these ideas to prosecute people who don't agree with them, right? And the next 12 to, it's like Marissa said before I had to go, the next 12 to 18 months, there's going to be a lot of things hitting critical mass. I think the manosphere is going to be among them, but it's very, very clear that, again, What If Alt History was talking about this at the start of the year. You're going to see a rise in political violence. You're going to start seeing people get killed on this. Kirk, and this is a big fear of mine, that Kirk is probably just the tip of the iceberg on this. And this is going to get really bad really fast. And it's not just going to get bad in the United States. It's going to get bad worldwide. I can now you start to understand why Alberta is leaving. And by the way, the very next topic will also be a full understanding of why Alberta is leaving. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Roger.
Well, with me, I mean, I agree with what you said there with it getting ready to get bad. Um, that's really what it all comes down to be honest. You can say this and you can say that all you want, but the truth of the matter is things are escalating. We're getting a lot of deaths, and especially when it comes to what we had in, I think it was 2 episodes ago, where we were talking about um, those politicians in Hungary, I believe it was.
Oh, Germany, AFD, Alternative for Deutschland. The seven members of AFD all died within about a 2-week period.
Right. And then altogether, what I found out is it wasn't just 7 of them, because 7 was just within that party, but there were 16 all together. And these were mysterious deaths. And then when the far right party leaders, when she brought it up, freaking they tried to classify her as a conspiracy nut and shit like that, and that's another theme that seems to be happening. Whenever these people speak out, there's some kind of conspiracy nut, or there's some far right freaking white supremacists, or which, don't get me wrong, some of them are, you know what I mean, but not all of them. But that's the thing, and all of this to me, it just stinks with nationalism. I that's the one thing that I get disgusted with about here in the United States is, like, I live in a country that was founded on constitutional government. We aren't supposed to be nationalists, and we aren't supposed to be socialists. We're supposed to believe in a constitutional government. And all the other countries, they can do whatever they want. They can live their nationalist ideologies and stuff, because a lot of them were founded on those beliefs. But here in the United States, we have a constitution that's codified, and we've lived by that constitution since the government and the country itself was founded. And that's what I find messed up. And every issue that's ever plagued this country has to do with those two things: socialism and freaking nationalism. And I just find it horrible that shit's taking place. And I don't see any of this stuff as being coincidental, that it's happening all around the world. That's something that's really disturbing too. And I think that there's groups that are involved in that are pushing these kind of agendas. And hopefully it's going to stop, because if it doesn't, it's going to escalate into something really, really bad. And I mean really bad. So that's all I got.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's, again, right. They basically, I think they went after Graham Linahan because they wanted to make an example out of him, and it's really backfired on them badly. But then again, we are talking about, again, there's going to be a lot of places in the next 12 to 18 months where you're going to see a lot of stuff starting to break down. Just the overall, just the corruption all by itself, but also the pushing of out-of-touch globalist agendas by elites that live in a bubble and seem to think that they know what's best for everybody else. That's just an absolute crock of shite. And, I think it's something that needs to, if the globalists had just simply, slowly coaxed everybody into going along with this, right, they might have been able to form some type of a cohesive world government, say, by the mid-late 21st century. Instead, what they're trying to do is they're trying to hammer it all in by force, and it's not working, and they're having to use increasingly draconian methods to try to enforce this stuff. And again, those draconian methods would have worked if it was just the old school media around, but it's not just the old school media around. You now have the alt media around covering stuff, so they can't cover this stuff up, right? Like, again, look at what happened with AFD. I mean, Adolf Hitler was doing the exact same thing with his political opponents in the 30s in Germany, but it was hard to verify what he was doing because the media was covering his ass for him, so you had to have somebody with the financial resources, the time, and the wherewithal to actually go to these places and look at all of the factors and put it all together, right? Now, you could do the same amount of research just sitting at your kitchen table with a laptop for the most part. Yeah, you might have to do the occasional visit here or there, but you can get most of this information without even having to leave the comfort of your bed, of your living room, right? That changes the dynamic of things a lot, right? And this is another example of it, right? We would not have found out about Graham Linahan had this happen. We would not have found out about Iryna Zarutska. We would not have found out about AFD. And it's like it's just constantly refusing to cover, the mainstream media just constantly either lying or refusing to cover topics until basically the alt media shames them into covering it. Right? And they just keep dropping the ball and dropping the ball and dropping the ball. And again, like next week on for 460, we'll be talking about the fact that there is a faction inside Hollywood that has just fucking had it with all the woke shit that's going on in LA. And they are talking, and there's been some talk about this for a while, but it's actually started to become the real deal, about moving a significant portion of the film community from California to Texas. You know, keep in mind, you know, they'll be bringing their a lot of them will be bringing their woke shit with them. But I mean, it's like, yeah, like that's actually happening, right? They got to point out that at one point, San Antonio damn near ended up being the film mecca that LA turned out to be. You know, that's an actual true historical fact. But anyway, you know what? We're done with this topic because we now have to get into, yes, we have got to get into the Canada content. So here, let me just this. Yeah, we have to do the Canada content. I mean, I'm from Canada, so it's like this is kind of important to me.
Well, talk a lot because I mean I'm not really too educated on a lot of that, like Citizen Graham Linahan. That was pretty reaching. But then you're getting into this Keean Bexte.
Yeah, from Juno News. Yeah, okay. So here's, and by the way, yeah, they are. We're having the same problems in Canada that they're having in Britain. They're being Carney has to be a little bit more sly about it because he's not. It's not like in Britain where the Labour Party has a majority. It's been a minority government in Canada for the last decade or so. Keep in mind the NDP, which is the basic equivalent of the Greens down in the United States, have been quietly propping, or the Liberal Party in Britain have been quietly propping up the Liberal government. We're first propping up Justin Trudeau, and now they're propping up Mark Carney, and to the actual detriment of the party itself, which is kind of shocking and disgusting when you think about it. But anyway, what happened with Keean is that he is facing criminal investigation for stuff that he did during the election. I have a couple of videos on it, so let's roll the tape on this. Let me just find it here. Here we go. The first one here, this one.
It's worth also noting that we didn't just hand him this letter of questions. We emailed. We did everything normally as well, right? We called, emailed, texted him and his wife as well.
No, sorry, not that one. This one.
I am being criminally investigated. I just received the letter from the government, from the Office of Canada's Election Commissioner, informing me that I'm being investigated for my reporting during Canada's 45th general election. The stories in question detail the alleged history of Thomas Keeper, someone you probably know of by now. He's the now fired Liberal candidate for Calgary Confederation. Juno News worked diligently to ensure the accuracy of what we published, and nothing then or now undermines its truth. We went above and beyond to ensure that we were reporting facts that were in the public interest. We not only gave the Liberal candidate, Thomas Keeper, chance after chance to answer very troubling allegations, he refused. I even hand-delivered an envelope with our questions to his office, and instead of responding, he called the police on me and lied, accusing me of assault. Now, the entire encounter was recorded, caught on camera, and the video makes it abundantly clear that his allegation was false, and within hours of our publication, what do you know, the Liberal Party fired him. Some Conservatives wish that we had waited, that our newsroom had held the story until after the nomination so that Keeper would be stuck on the ballot after the nomination deadline, and it would secure the seat for Conservatives. But journalism is not about party strategy, it's about informing the public. During an election, no less, and that's what we did. Now Mark Carney, he's furious, and he's using an authoritarian law implemented by Justin Trudeau to investigate me for the crime of reporting news that humiliated the Liberal Party of Canada. In Iran, I'd be executed for embarrassing the regime. In North Korea, I'd be sent to a labor camp. In China, I'd be carted off to some off-the-book black site and never heard from again. And in Canada, I'm threatened with up to 5 years in federal prison and a devastating $50,000 fine. I don't know how long this fight will last, or if I'll be in prison by this time next year, but I do know this. If it goes to trial, I will take it to the Supreme Court of Canada. And those justices, 6 of 9, who were appointed by Justin Trudeau, will be forced to declare once and for all whether freedom of the press still exists in this country. A more complete picture of this investigation, including the Commissioner's letter that I just read, will be published at defendjuno.com. You can read it for yourself. It's all there. Canada once stood as a beacon for press freedom, and today I join journalists in Afghanistan and Sudan who face prison for reporting the news during an election. I'm innocent. Section 2B of the Charter guarantees freedom of expression and the press, and this investigation is meant to scare me and you. The Liberal machine may try to twist the law and silence me, but they will fail. They may try to break me, but they will not. I will fight this investigation. I will protect my sources, and I will never waver in my pursuit of the truth, wherever it leads me. Now, our legal bill is going to cost tens of thousands of dollars. But this is not a fundraiser, don't get me wrong. If you want to donate to our legal fund, you can. It's on our website, and seriously, thank you. But really, this is a rallying call. We need an army of supporters who will stand up and speak out. Ottawa is not going after us because they think we're inconsequential. They're going after us because they fear a strong, independent, and fearless voice, one that is frankly replacing the CBC that they rely on. We're able to maintain our independence because of our subscribers, because of you. And if you're not a subscriber yet today, I ask that you go to defendjuno.com, read about this fight, and most importantly, subscribe. Join the team, join the fight, and show Ottawa that Canadians will fight to defend our most basic freedoms, and we will not let them trample on us. Juno News is the largest independent newsroom in Canada, and that is why they want to stop us. We refuse to trade our independence for their grant money. Our news reflects that. We punch up and we punch hard. And when we do, the boot of tyrants comes down pretty quickly. Together, we can fight back. Become a Juno News member today at defendjuno.com. Read about the full investigation for yourself. Join me, join the fight, and stand up against Mark Carney and the cronies who are trying to destroy this country, destroy the press, and stop us from hearing the truth.
Okay, the next one. This was his interview. I believe it's one on the Rebel. But yeah, here we go.
It's worth also noting that we didn't just hand him this letter of questions. We emailed. We did everything normally as well, right? We called, emailed, texted him and his wife as well. Everyone that was available that was relevant to the story, we did the same thing. And he chose not to. And also, interestingly, if this was false, you'd think he would sue us for defamation.
Yeah.
Even though we did try to responsibly communicate with him, if it was really that outrageously false that I am now a criminal because of this story, you'd think he would sue in civil court for defamation. But he hasn't sent us so much as a cease and desist letter, let alone a notice of defamation. So why hasn't he done that? Well, the answer is because he knows, assuming it was him that filed this with the election commissioner and not the Liberal Party itself, he knows that it will cost him nothing to do this, and he has no case. Right. But taxpayers will still foot the bill to prosecute a journalist, and at the end of the day, that's all he might want.
I want to ask you, because I haven't watched the original story since you aired it. Can you just tell us what the essence of the accusations were? Now, don't go any further in your language than you already have gone, but can you just remind me and our viewers, what was it that all his friends and associates had said he did? And just don't embellish, not that you would. Just give me a reminder.
Yeah, I got to be very careful because, like I said, we wanted to be so careful with the story. It was the most fact-checking and time I have spent on any one story in my entire career.
The story's still up on your website, right?
Yeah, it is. I encourage everyone to go there and look at it because they'll be able to read the whole thing. And Juno News and I still stand behind everything that was in there. And if we were led to believe, even now at this point, that something was wrong, we would correct it. But nothing has indicated that we need to. Basically, it was a pattern of abusive behavior ranging of all different kinds of abuse. And I'll
Okay.
Now, here, let me unmute myself. Okay, so yeah, you heard Rearson talk earlier tonight about how the Canadian media has been bought off. If it wasn't for True North and Juno, and I think a couple of smaller other sources, there would be, the government would have a literal bought off and paid for press inside Canada. This is because Britain didn't do this. This is a specific Canadian problem. To give you an idea, this would have been say, Biden, releasing $6 billion or $6 or $7 billion to the major media corporations in the United States to get favorable coverage from those media sources. That would be the functional equivalent of what in the United States, if what Trudeau did in Canada, right? Now, I'm pretty sure that would not have gone over very well in the U.S. Am I correct in that assumption?
That would generally be the general practice here too, and now when it comes to all the censorship that's been taking place on the internet, if you notice after Trump and Elon Musk did their government audit, and the money was basically pulled, a lot of this censorship has died down, and the reason for that is because that's what platforms like YouTube was doing too. They were getting paid to censor people, you know what I mean? And now they don't have any incentive to do that. And I think that's something that's an issue that needs to be brought up too. It's like he said, the grant money, they don't accept the grant money, that they report the news, and they don't want Canada's grant money because that's a payoff for their silence. At least that's my interpretation of it. And I think that's what was going on here in the United States as well. So, kudos for those guys for doing that. That's all I can really say about it. That's how I relate to it.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, man, it works a little bit differently in the U.S., but basically, Trudeau, and we covered this on the show way back when he first did this, basically offered a bribe to most of the mainstream corporations, and yeah, the most of the media bought it up with it. CBC in particular. Well, CBC is so bad that, I mean, literally, they got run off of X, formerly Twitter, because they were just as again, like the only way that CBC was able to survive was because the old regime at X, formerly Twitter, was running block for them, and they're not doing it anymore. I mean, like Global's not quite so bad, but CTV, like I don't know who's running the Twitter account for CTV on X at this point. But I mean, the person who's running the website on CTV on X is clearly a propagandist. Mm-hmm. They get caught in, I mean, like the lying that the media does here in Canada makes the lying that occurs down in the United States look rigidly honest in comparison, right? We've also got a situation here where if you have, for instance, on Facebook in Canada, you can't post certain articles from certain publications, like the Canadian, like the filter will not allow you to post up certain articles on Facebook in Canada because of a bill that got passed during the Trudeau regime. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And it's like, I mean, I'm not overly surprised that they're going after the media, because it's like what you're seeing in Canada is, I mean, credit where credit's due. I mean, Carney is trying more of a slow creep on this, whereas Trudeau just didn't give a fuck and was just going to do it anyway. Carney is trying to kind of backdoor this stuff through, whereas before Trudeau was just like going to just outright do it, period, end of story, and again, right? I mean, Ezra Levant, who was the guy on the second video, he's had multiple visits. He's had at least a couple of visits from the RCMP trying to shake him down and intimidate him into not reporting stories. If I frankly, this is very strictly something that was happening, because we talked about Nepal earlier tonight. If I was Danielle Smith and I wanted to bring in a new alt economy, what I would do is I would go to all of the YouTubers and all of the independent media, as many of them as humanly possible. I would try to get as many of those people to move to Alberta, right? And that would bring in a lot of revenue. That might not bring in a huge amount of revenue, but it would be an alternative revenue stream on top of what Alberta already has going for it, right? And it's like, it's stuff like this, because Juno News is based out of Calgary, right? Rebel is based out of Toronto, although Ezra Levant got his start in Calgary. And by the way, I was not particularly impressed with Ezra Levant when I first read his stuff. It was very, and I know some people who knew him back then, a very out-of-touch rich kid. Don't know what happened to him, but he obviously grew up some over the years, because I have a little bit more respect for him now. But I mean, Rebel also got its start in Calgary. So I mean, if I was Daniel Smith, I'd be pushing hard to bring a lot of the alt media into the umbrella of the province of Alberta, so it would be much, much harder for the Prime Minister of Canada to use federal force, especially if they have an Alberta provincial police force, right? Because if there's an Alberta provincial police force trying to weaponize the RCMP and this has also been done on Keean Bexte as well. This was done a couple of years ago, where the RCMP showed up at his door to harass him, and it was done. It wasn't like, I mean, it wasn't directly tracked down the Trudeau, but it was very obvious that the orders for this came from Ottawa, right? If there is a provincial police force in Alberta, and even separation or no separation, if the RCMP try to do a shakedown on content creators or independent media in Alberta, the next day you have the Alberta Provincial Police showing up at the RCMP door going, who directed you to do this? Right? That's the reason why they don't want an Alberta Provincial Police Force. It's because if they have an Alberta Provincial Police Force, right, like the RCMP, like the Ottawa would not be able to weaponize the RCMP as much as they have in the past. And again, I was mentioning that about the British police, like the RCMP in Canada is one of the few uniquely Canadian symbols out there, right? And to have its reputation be tarnished the way it has been in the past few years by the Canadian government is just absolutely disgusting. And yes, if I am passionate about this, well, yeah, I am Canadian. If you really don't care about Canada, well, that's your problem. I live here. I got to deal with this stuff, you know?
We'll overlook it this time, but...
Yeah, I'm not going to...
Only because it's you. If it was anybody else from Canada, oh, man, whatever, dude.
Yeah.
Naroki, it's you, so we're going to just overlook that and let it slide.
All right, so that's
you.
Yeah, yes, I'm a Canadian. I like my hockey. I actually don't like maple syrup on my pancakes. I think
hockey's cool. Hockey is cool.
Hockey.
Yeah. I mean, that's a man's game right there, buddy. I'm sorry, but that's a man's game. If you
damn straight, man. You don't see hockey players like diving because they get pushed a little bit. Although there are apparently some players in the NHL that know how to dive. Pull Greg Louganis invitations, know how to dive quite effectively, including the legendary Wayne Gretzky, apparently. But that's neither here nor there. But anyway, that's the media situation here. The media here in Canada is basically bought and paid for, except for some independent media sources. And thank the maker that they have those independent media sources. Otherwise, this would be an absolute fucking mess. Like it's a mess here, but it would be even more of a mess if there wasn't any independent media. And with that, let's move on to the final topic of the night.
Yeah.
Oh, and this is the absolute most staggeringly important topic. Never mind Iryna Zarutska, never mind Charlie Kirk, never mind what was going on in Japan and France and Nepal. This is absolutely the biggest story of them all, the one that dwarfs them all, and I think the one that should be on the front page of every newspaper in the country, in the world. Yes, suddenly the media, and you should be, hopefully you're sitting down for this one, because I mean it's shocking to its core. The movie ratings website Rotten Tomatoes is rigged. Yes, it's rigged.
Yep.
Yep. It's. I know. I had to go. You know, I dealt with Charlie Kirk. I took it all as dry. But when I found out that Rotten Tomatoes, the aggregator website aggregator of all the ratings, was rigged, well, you know, I just had to sit down. I had to take a day. You know, I did. Shocked and disgusted. I mean, never mind the fact that somehow, you know, sorry, especially movies done by Disney somehow always get a somewhat higher favorable rating on there, and the fact that they're driven by advertisers, and a lot of the advertisers are controlled by media companies. The fact that the last Star Wars movie somehow miraculously stayed at 87%, literally all the way through its entire run. It stayed at 87%. But no, the rating wasn't being controlled at all.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it wasn't. The way they had to shut down the fan side ratings and had to verify the fan side ratings. Again, I got to keep in mind here, there was some review brigading going on Rotten Tomatoes, so that was not necessarily a bad thing. But I mean, yeah, like they have literally shut down the fan rating aggregator entirely with some again, specifically with a lot of like the major studio projects, right? There's a number of reasons why this happens. One of the big ones is, and I literally only knew this, I only found out about this a couple of weeks ago, but the movie reviewers, when there is a preview of a movie, if you do not, as a movie reviewer in LA, if you do not go to these movies, come hell or high water, you are not going to get an invite to another one. So there's a form of extortion right there, right? There's also the fact that, I mean, if you give it a shitty review, you will also not be getting invites to the premieres of the movie that this particular studio puts out. And by the way, there is an absolute blacklist in LA. There's been one for years. You might potentially run the risk of getting blacklisted from all of the other studios when they do their releases. So there is and of course you with Rotten Tomatoes, you also have the website. You also have the fact that they rely on commercial revenue from movie studios and from media companies to get advertising for the site. So yeah, shocker of shockers. All of a sudden, like, this has been well known about Rotten Tomatoes for years now, but it is finally now coming out. Again, probably, I suspect that there may have been some U.S. aid money going into well, there was. I'm absolutely convinced there was definitely U.S. aid money going into Hollywood, because it's just like, I mean, just like the number of bad movie projects that have come out in the past few years where they were just like literally they're basically throwing money down this hole, which, by the way, film people will do if they're allowed to. Throwing money down this hole and not expecting any kind of a return. In particular, Disney was doing this, and it was like, well, okay, with the case of Disney, they've got the theme parks, they've got the resorts, they've got the Disney cruise that stopped at Epstein Island. They've also got the mysterious disappearances of passengers aboard their luxury liners. You've got all sorts of stuff going on with Disney. Disney has gotten unusual favorable ratings from Rotten Tomatoes in the past. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, the media suddenly discovers that Rotten Tomatoes is compromised. Well, Rotten Tomatoes has been compromised for an extremely long time now. And, nice of the media to finally catch up to us. But, I mean, again, right, if you want an actual legit, and this is another thing that's happened, Rotten Tomatoes has become so compromised that if you actually want to get a decent movie review, you go to people online and you look at their content and their reviews before you go over to Rotten Tomatoes. That's where the critical drinker is so unpopular in LA, because a lot of people will go to the critical drinker, although he's potentially a raging alcoholic, but I digress. He's a funny raging alcoholic, and I hope.
Where'd you come up with that? I mean, maybe it would have been like the critical drinker. I'm sorry, I just had to say that. It's like,
the critical drinker. So yeah, it's like no kidding, right? That there's that he might be, but I mean, again, right? People are going to YouTube now, and then now they're starting to go over to Rumble, because Rumble is actually starting to get significantly big now. Like, it's not anywhere near the size of YouTube, but if YouTube keeps doing some of the bullshit they have been doing, like YouTube might not even exist in 5 or 6 years' time, the way YouTube is going. For instance, YouTube was when they were really aggressively going after ad blockers, even on sites like the Microsoft Internet Explorer and Brave and all of the other alt sites. They were doing everything they could to block if you had an ad blocker on there, that you couldn't watch the stuff. I have noticed that, I mean, again, like, they have started up with the ad blocker thing again on Google. And again, I have also noticed that, for instance, when I watch YouTube videos on Brave, that the resolution is taking much longer to come up on screen again. So they're pushing this ad blocker bullshit again on YouTube. Is pushing this bullshit again. Again. And it's, it's just getting, it's getting a little bit ridiculous. Again, though, we knew that Rotten Tomatoes had been compromised. Metacritic is actually not a little, is a lot more honest, but it also has got some, again, right? There is a even from the which is why it was so easy for globalists to infiltrate Hollywood, because there was a natural liberal bias in Hollywood. There always has been, which is why McCarthy targeted Hollywood so vigorously back in the 50s, right? I mean, I still am not a fan of Joseph McCarthy, but I understand why he decided to go after Hollywood so vigorously. Again, there's a lot about McCarthyism that I really don't like and that I really don't care for. But I mean, at the same time, I definitely get why McCarthy chose to do that, right? And so, yeah, I mean, if you want legit reviews for movies, especially the mainstream studio movies, you don't go to Rotten Tomatoes. You maybe go over to Metacritic. But if you want a decent review, you go and watch something on YouTube, like, say, The Critical Drinker. And there's other reviewers on YouTube, and actually not just YouTube now, but on Rumble as well, that will give you much better reviews than anything that you will see. And again, right, it's because of a combination of advertising, the absolute need of the studios to control who sees the movie before it comes out. So they have these premieres, and if you don't show up, you don't get invited back again. And if you do show up and you give the movie a shitty review, you never get invited back again. In fact, you run the risk of not getting invited to another studio's movie debut. So there's a corruption system of the whole review process in LA around this. Mm-hmm. And it just continues to get, and again, right? It's like shockers, right? It just gets it's done. So, Roger, take this out, and then I'm gonna go get some food, and then I'm gonna go to bed, man, because it's been a long day for me.
Now, Rotten Tomatoes, it's just like you said. I mean, for me, I've known that they've been bought and paid for a long time ago. But it is good that, it's publicly being recognized now. Because, I mean, I've never even thought about actually bringing it up as a topic. It was, to me, just like general knowledge, I mean, you don't really listen to freaking what Rotten Tomatoes says. That was almost as bad as what it really reminds me of is the old Siskel and Ebert freaking movie reviews that they used to show every week. You could tell that these guys were like paid off shills, and all they freaking did was talk a bunch of garbage, because they'd put like crappy movies on and say how great it was, and that's every single thing that the Rotten Tomatoes did was horrible. Look at some of the freaking movies they tried to say that were really good, and they were crappy. I think the last one was a Tom Hanks movie that came out, and they just beefed it up about how great it was, and freaking it was horrible, and it was, and Hollywood is bought and paid for, because even though I don't agree with the company, Saturday Night Live, okay, I don't agree with the freaking rating systems that came out of that. Like they're basically trying to say every freaking Saturday Night Live produced movie was horrible, Happy Gilmore and movies like that, they were just like the worst ratings of all times, and that's bullshit, dude. Even to this day, people still watch those movies, things like that. So I don't really pay attention to much of that shit. I've gotten to the point now where I've gone back over and watched like the older black and white comedies, and I've learned a lot, or I've gained a lot of respect for Jack Benny and George Burns, because that's real shit. That's real entertainment. A lot of this new stuff, man, is just rehashed shit from back then, whenever freaking George Burns started the Friars Club. Just that's the good stuff. And then Jack Benny and his freaking, he was a greedy dude, you know what I mean? He'd pinch pennies and shit. And he was so cheap, freaking he went to go play golf, and every time somebody hit a 4, he'd freaking open his pocket and let the golf ball slide into his pocket so he didn't have to pay for golf balls. Just cool stuff like that. So for me, that's the way I've become. I'm more into a lot of that, and when you take and you look at old shows like that, it shows you just how bad the quality in television and movies have become. So I don't know. That's kind of what I've been wanting to do when it comes to like just hanging out and having fun with people. It's more about being funny and telling people, man, that if you can't take a break and not be so serious and just enjoy what you're doing, then it's not worth doing. Sometimes you got to have fun, and that's what I've been actually trying to do. I'm trying to enjoy what I'm doing instead of getting serious about it. So fuck Rotten Tomatoes. I don't like fucking Rotten Tomatoes. It tastes bad. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, well, anyway, try not to candy coat it. But anyway, that is the show tonight. All right, I'm just going to say this. If we had included all of the Charlie Kirk stuff, this particular show would have run 6 hours.
That's horrible.
So yeah, I'm glad we kept Charlie Kirk off this. Charlie Kirk definitely deserves its own episode. There probably is going to be some stuff. Technically speaking, 260 could be done, depending upon my work schedule. 260 could be done tomorrow, although I'm really tempted to just take another day off. I'm not sure yet. But anyway, this concludes this particular episode of the Red Pill Nation Hangout. Thank you very much for sticking all the way through, both of you. And we will see you again. There's going to be a little bit more of a consistent schedule from this point forward. No, I think I'm going to pass on doing 460 tomorrow. I will probably move 460 to Friday or something like that, because
go to bed and get some sleep and stay asleep until you have to go to work. That's what you need to do.
Today, as soon as I'm done this, I have to go to the laundry room and get my laundry out of the laundry room. So I'm not quite done yet. But anyway, that is it for tonight, folks. Thank you very much for showing up. We will see you on the next one. And just remember, and I will put the banner down below because I totally forgot to bring it up earlier. Patreon at the Red Pill Nation. And, of course, I now have my Subscribe Star. At least I've started my Subscribe Star back. If you want to help me out, the aim here is for me to be able to do this and only this and not have to work a day job. That's my objective on this. And I also have another further objective that I want to get done before the end of the year. I want my combined pool of all of my sites to surpass what I had when I was a victim of cancel culture a couple of years ago and I lost my YouTube site. So yeah, I would like to reach that goal before the end of the year. But that is it for tonight, folks. I will see you probably Friday, I'm guessing. Because I don't want to do 460 tomorrow. Mm-hmm. All right. Because I'm probably if I could squeeze some work in tomorrow, I will probably do that instead. But I want to get a full night's sleep here. So thank you very much for listening, and that is it for tonight. See ya.
See you later.